Station lockdown initiated. 2 Krithal cubs missing from secured containment. Matriarch Zara threatening immediate military action if offspring harmed. Security Chief Kyle-Thas's voice cracked across every comm channel on diplomatic station Kepler 9, and Commander Zillax felt his 3 hearts stop simultaneously. Missing Krithal cubs? During the most critical peace summit in galactic history. With their mother, the most powerful matriarch in 7 sectors, on station. Seal every exit, Zillax ordered, his hands already flying across his command console. Emergency Protocol 7 Alpha. Lock down all docking bays. Nobody moves between sections without armed escort. This was worse than a reactor breach, worse than a hull fracture. The Krithal were apex predators whose cubs were considered sacred, living weapons that bonded only to their birth clan. Losing them wasn't just a security failure, it was a declaration of war. Sir, Matriarch Zara is demanding answers. His aide's voice trembled. She's armed. Her honor guard is mobilizing. Tell her we're conducting a full search. Zillax pulled up the security feeds, his mind racing through scenarios. How did they get out? Those containment fields were designed to hold combat mechs. Unknown, sir. No breach detected. No system failures. They just vanished. Kyle-Thas burst onto the command deck, his scales flushed dark with stress. Scent trail leads toward the human quarters, Commander. It's impossible, but... Impossible how? Zillax's voice sharpened. The cubs went voluntarily. No signs of struggle, no forced extraction. They chose to leave maximum security. Kyle-Thas pulled up holographic tracking data. And, sir, Krithal cubs don't do that. They're trained from hatching to stay with their matriarch or designated guardians. Moving independently it contradicts every biological imperative we know about the species. Are you telling me, Zillax said slowly, that 2 of the galaxy's most dangerous predator cubs, each capable of killing armed soldiers, voluntarily left secured containment and headed toward the habitat ring? Toward human maintenance section, specifically. A new kind of dread settled in Zillax's chest. Humans. Of course it involved humans. Every inexplicable incident on this station in the past 6 months somehow circled back to humans. Get every human in that section to the security center. Now. 20 minutes later, Zillax found himself staring at a woman in grease-stained coveralls who looked more confused than concerned. Emma Johnson. Maintenance worker, 3rd shift. Her personnel file listed her as generally competent, with a note about her tendency to talk to equipment while repairing it. I don't understand what the emergency is, Emma said, glancing around the security center where armed guards flanked every door. Did someone break something? Because I just fixed the air recyclers in Section 7, and they were definitely... Ms. Johnson. Zillax forced his voice to remain level. Were you in your quarters between cycle hours 200 and 400? Yeah. I got off shift at 0100, crashed around 1130. Why? Did you see or hear anything unusual? Emma frowned, thinking. Define unusual. I mean, there was that purring sound around midnight, but I figured it was the ventilation system acting up again. Every alien in the room went rigid. Purring? Kyle-Thas leaned forward, his voice tight. You heard purring? Yeah, kind of a deep rumbling. It stopped after a while, so I didn't bother getting up to check it. Emma shrugged. Should I have filed a maintenance request? Zillax exchanged glances with Kyle-Thas. Krithal cubs only purred when completely content, completely safe, completely at ease. It was a sound most security experts never heard, because Krithal cubs were trained killers from birth, always alert, always ready for combat. They didn't do contentment. Ms. Johnson, Zillax said carefully, 2 Krithal cubs are missing. Extremely dangerous predators. Sacred offspring of matriarch Zara. If they're harmed, we're looking at interstellar war. Do you understand the severity? Emma's eyes widened. Oh shit, those fuzzy guys with the big teeth, there were cubs on station? She paused. Wait, why are you telling me this? Their scent trail leads to your section. Oh. Emma chewed her lip. Well, I mean, you might want to check my quarters, just in case. Just in case what? Kael'thas demanded. Just in case they, found a place to hide. Kids do that sometimes when they're scared. Emma said it like she was suggesting they check behind a couch for a lost remote control. Zilak stared at her. You think apex predator cubs, trained weapons capable of tearing through reinforced plating, are hiding in your quarters because they're scared? I mean, they're still kids, right? Emma looked around at the horrified alien faces. What am I missing here? The security team moved through the corridor in full combat formation. Energy shields raised, neural disruptors charged, each member wearing reinforced armor rated for Krithal claws. Kael'thas led the breach personally, his hand signaling the final approach to Emma's quarters. On my mark, he whispered into his comm. Remember, these are cubs, but they can still tear through bone. Non-lethal force only unless... The door slid open. Kael'thas froze. On Emma's bunk, curled together under her maintenance jacket, 2 Krithal cubs slept peacefully. Not in the coiled, ready-to-strike position documented in every xenobiology text. Not with their sensory quills extended for threat detection. They were sprawled on their backs, limbs relaxed, breathing deep and even. One had its paw draped over the other's chest. The smaller cub was making that purring sound, a deep rumble that vibrated through the small quarters. By the ancestors, someone breathed behind Kael'thas. Emma pushed past the security team, still holding her coffee. Oh, the fuzzy guys. Yeah, they seemed cold. Seemed cold? Kael'thas couldn't process what he was seeing. Ms. Johnson, do you understand what you're looking at? Sleeping kids? Emma set her coffee down and approached the bunk. The security team tensed, weapons half raised, but she just reached out and gently scratched behind one cub's sensory quills. The cub stretched, yawned wide enough to show rows of razor teeth, then nuzzled into Emma's hand with a pleased chirp. Kael'thas felt his legs go weak. That's not possible. What's not possible? He likes scratches. Emma's tone suggested she was explaining something obvious to a slow child. Heavy footsteps thundered down the corridor. Matriarch Zara appeared in the doorway, her massive frame filling the space, her honor guard flanking her with weapons drawn. She took one look at the scene and went absolutely still. My cubs, she said, her voice strangled. They're sleeping, Emma supplied helpfully. They showed up around midnight, scratching at my door. Looked pretty miserable, honestly. She pulled a protein bar from her pocket. You guys hungry? I've got... Both cubs' eyes snapped open at the sound of crinkling wrapper. They sat up, focused on Emma, and made soft chirping sounds. Emma broke the bar in half and offered it. The cubs took it from her hands with delicate precision, eating it while making pleased rumbling sounds. They should have attacked you, Zara whispered. The moment you approached. That's their training. That's their instinct. Huh. Emma watched the cubs eat. They were pretty gentle, actually. The little one, she pointed to the smaller cub, was shivering when they got here. I gave them my jacket and some spare blankets, made a little nest situation. Kael'thas's security team was running calculations on their tactical displays. One guard looked up, his face pale. Commander, the statistical probability of this interaction is 0.0003%. Crithal cubs don't display trust behaviors. They don't seek comfort. They don't... He gestured helplessly at the scene. They don't treat outsiders as safe. Zara finished, her voice hollow. She stared at Emma. What did you do to them? I didn't do anything. Emma looked genuinely confused now. They scratched at my door. I opened it. They looked sad and cold. I let them in and gave them blankets. That's it. That's it? Zara's voice rose. You let apex predator cubs into your quarters? Alone? Unguarded? I mean, yeah? Emma shrugged. What was I supposed to do? Leave them in the hallway? You should have been terrified. You should have called security. They could have killed you in seconds. They were kids looking for help. Emma said it like it was the most obvious thing in the universe. Why would I call security on scared kids? Kael'thas pulled up the security footage on his datapad, rewinding to midnight. There, the cubs, emerging from a ventilation shaft. Impossible, those were. Too small, following scent trails through the corridors. They passed 3 other occupied quarters, past the mess hall, past the recreation center, walked directly to Emma's door and began scratching. They chose her, he said aloud. They tracked her specifically, past dozens of other beings, went straight to the human. Of course they did, Emma said, scratching both cubs behind their quills now. They leaned into her touch, eyes half closed in contentment. I fixed the heating unit in their section yesterday. Probably smelled like me. You fixed their containment area? Zilax demanded over the comm. Yeah, the temperature regulator was busted. Kept cycling too cold. I got it working again, but... Emma trailed off, looking at the cubs. Wait, was their room supposed to be that cold? Because the setting was at, like, 15 degrees Celsius. That's freezing. Zara's expression shifted. The cold is part of their hardening training. To build resilience. Emma stopped scratching. You're deliberately keeping baby predators cold for training? It's tradition. It makes them strong. It makes them miserable, Emma said flatly. She looked down at the cubs, who were now pressed against her legs. No wonder they ran away. Come, Zara commanded, her voice carrying the authority of a matriarch who'd led her clan for 3 decades. It was the recall signal, embedded in Crithal cubs from their first day of awareness. Absolute obedience was biological imperative. Both cubs glanced at her briefly, then returned their attention to Emma. The silence in the room was deafening. Come, Zara repeated, more forcefully. Her honor guard shifted uncomfortably. The smaller cub chirped at Emma and trotted to the corner of the room, returning with something in its mouth, a small maintenance tool Emma had apparently been using as an improvised toy. The cub dropped it at Emma's feet, looking up expectantly. Oh, you want to play fetch? Emma picked up the tool. Buddy, I gotta tell you, now's not really the time. That's not possible. Zara's voice cracked. Cubs don't play. They drill. They train. They don't bring toys to anyone except... She stopped, staring. Except trusted family members. Kael'thas was already on his comm. Get me a Crithal cultural expert. Now. I don't care if you have to wake up the entire xenobiology department. Within minutes, Professor Vex Thul materialized via hologram, his sleep-rumpled appearance suggesting he'd been dragged from rest cycle. This better be. He saw the cubs, saw them pressed against Emma's legs, saw one of them contentedly chewing on a protein bar while the other nuzzled Emma's hand. That violates 10,000 years of documented biology. Thank you, Professor Obvious, Kael'thas muttered. No, you don't understand. Vexthul pulled up holographic data, his hands shaking. Krythal cubs imprint on their matriarch exclusively. They don't bond with others. They don't seek comfort. They don't, he gestured frantically at the scene. They don't do any of this. I just treated them like, kids, Emma offered, clearly trying to be helpful. They're not children. Vexthul's voice rose. They're apex predators, trained weapons. The concept of treating them like children it's nonsensical. It contradicts their entire developmental psychology. Okay, but they literally are children, Emma said. Look at them. They're babies. Ms. Johnson, Zilax cut in over the comm. We need to separate the cubs from you now, for everyone's safety. All right, sure. Emma stepped away from the cubs. Both cubs immediately began making distressed sounds, low growls mixed with whining chirps. They positioned themselves between Emma and the door, their body language shifting from relaxed to protective. Not attacking. Protecting. They're guarding her, Zara whispered. They're treating her like clan. This is a nightmare, Vexthul moaned. I need to contact the Galactic Council. This is paradigm breaking. Emma, ignoring the growing chaos, bent down and scooped up the smaller cub. Every weapon in the room raised instantly. The cub should have activated its combat reflexes, claws extended, teeth bared, sensory quills rigid. Instead, it curled into Emma's arms and purred so loudly that the sound echoed off the walls. Zara's legs gave out. She sat heavily on the floor, her honor guard rushing to support her. How? She breathed. How are you doing this? I'm literally just holding him. Emma adjusted her grip, cradling the cub like a human baby. See? He's happy. He should be killing you, Zara said. And her voice held something Emma hadn't heard before. Not anger, not confusion, but something that sounded like grief. That's what we train them for. That's what they're supposed to do. Well, he's not. Emma sat on her bunk, still holding the cub. The larger one immediately jumped up beside her, pressing against her leg. They were scared and alone in a weird place. Obviously, they'd look for comfort. Obviously? Kyle Thas repeated weakly. Yeah, I gave them my jacket when they got here. It was warm and smelled familiar. Let them sleep on my bunk. It's softer than the floor. Made a nest with my spare blankets. Talked to them a bit, soft voices so they'd know I wasn't a threat. Emma shrugged. Gave them space, but stayed nearby so they felt safe. Pretty basic stuff. But they're predators, Vexthul said desperately. Yeah, predator babies. Emma looked around at the horrified alien faces. Still babies, though. What are you guys not getting here? On the command deck, Zilax watched his view screen fill with incoming priority communications. The Galactic Council, the Krythal High Command, 3 different xenobiology institutes. Everyone wanted answers he didn't have. A human maintenance worker had just broken 10,000 years of established Krythal biology by being kind to scared children. And nobody in the galaxy knew what to do about it. Zara remained on the floor, watching her cubs curl contentedly against the human. When she finally spoke, her voice was hollow. We raise our cubs in isolation. Controlled temperatures, minimal comfort, constant alertness training. It's how we've built the strongest warriors in the galaxy for 10,000 years. Emma's face went from confused to horrified in seconds. Wait, you don't let them feel safe? Ever? Safety breeds weakness. Comfort breeds complacency. They must be strong. They're babies. Emma's voice cracked. The cub in her arms chirped nervously, and she immediately softened her tone, stroking its back. "Sorry, buddy. Not mad at you." She looked back at Zara. "You're telling me you deliberately keep children in a constant state of stress? For their entire childhood?" "It's our way. It's always been. It's abuse." Emma said it flatly. "That's child abuse. I don't care what species you are." The room erupted. Zara's honor guard bristled. Vexthul started to protest. Kael'thas tried to maintain order, but Emma kept talking, her voice cutting through the noise. "Look at them." She gestured to the cubs. "They're relaxed, they're happy, they're safe. And you know what? I bet they could still tear me apart if they wanted to. Being comfortable doesn't make you weak. It makes you stable." The larger cub had climbed into Emma's lap now, despite its size. Both cubs were displaying behaviors the gathered aliens had never seen. Soft chirps, relaxed posture, seeking physical contact, responding to gentle touch. The holographic feeds were transmitting everything to the Galactic Council, where representatives from dozens of species watched in stunned silence. Human child-rearing philosophy, Emma continued, is based on the idea that children need to feel safe before they can grow. Comfort, reassurance, emotional bonds. That's not weakness. That's foundation. You build strength on top of security, not instead of it. "But our warriors," Zara started, "are probably terrified all the time and don't even know it." Emma interrupted. "Let me guess. Your species has high aggression rates, quick to violence, difficulty with diplomatic relations." Zara's silence was answer enough. "Yeah." Emma sighed. "Because you're raising traumatized kids who grow into traumatized adults who only know how to deal with fear through aggression. It's a cycle." Ambassador Lirana, from the Sindari delegation, appeared in the doorway, her translator working overtime. "Our species employs similar protocols. Isolation during developmental periods to encourage independence and tactical thinking." "Same with the Vorton," another voice called over the comm. "The Jarell as well," added a third. Emma looked around the room, realization dawning on her face. "Oh my God, you're all doing this, all of you?" She laughed, but it sounded slightly hysterical. "No wonder everyone's at war constantly. You're all emotionally stunted. The entire galaxy is run by people who were never allowed to feel safe as children." The communications board lit up with incoming requests. Xenopsychologists, cultural anthropologists, military strategists. Everyone suddenly wanted to understand the human approach to child development. "Miss Johnson," Zara said quietly, could you teach me? Teach us? How to..." She struggled with the words. "How to let them feel safe while still raising them strong." Emma blinked. "You want me to teach you how to parent?" "The evidence is undeniable." Zara gestured to her cubs, who were now completely relaxed, one asleep in Emma's arms. "They've demonstrated more emotional stability in 6 hours with you than in their entire lives with me. I thought I was making them strong, but perhaps I was only making them afraid." The smaller cub stirred, making a soft sound. Zara instinctively reached out, then hesitated. Emma noticed and gently guided the matriarch's hand to the cub's back. "Like this. Slow, steady. Let him know you're there and you're safe." The cub leaned into its mother's touch and purred. Zara's expression cracked completely. I've never heard them make that sound for me. Over the next several hours, Emma became an accidental ambassador. The cubs refused to leave her side during the remainder of the diplomatic summit. So she attended meetings in her maintenance coveralls, a cub under each arm. She explained attachment theory to bemused military commanders, demonstrated comfort techniques to fascinated xenobiologists. described human concepts of emotional intelligence, secure attachment, and developmental psychology to representatives who'd never considered such things possible. Station Command created a new database, Human Emotional Development Protocols. Emma's personnel file gained a new designation, Interspecies Child Welfare Consultant. She laughed for 5 minutes straight when she saw it. By the summit's end, Zara had requisitioned soft bedding, temperature-adjusted environments, and what Emma called comfort items. Blankets, toys, things that smelled like safety. The cubs finally returned to their mother, but they carried Emma's spare jacket with them and slept with it every night. "You changed my entire worldview in a day," Zara told Emma before departing. "Changed my species' entire approach to child rearing. How do I thank you for that?" Emma shrugged, uncomfortable with the praise. "You just try to make them feel loved, that's all. They're kids. They deserve that much." As the Crethal delegation departed, Zilax pulled Emma aside. "You realize what you've done? You've initiated a cultural revolution across multiple species. Galactic child-rearing protocols are being rewritten as we speak." "I gave scared kids some blankets," Emma protested. "You gave an entire galaxy permission to be kind to their children," Zilax corrected. "That's rather more significant." 3 weeks later, the station's diplomatic wing had been transformed. Where once stood sterile conference rooms, now existed what the humans called family-friendly spaces. Soft lighting, temperature-controlled zones, and yes, blankets. Lots of blankets. Emma ducked under a work panel in Section 7, wrench in hand, completely ignoring the revolution she'd caused. The air filtration system had developed an annoying rattle, and she was determined to find the loose coupling before her shift ended. Her datapad chimed, a message from Zara. "The cubs have named their comfort toys. The larger one is Emma Soft, the smaller is Emma Warm. Thought you should know." Emma snorted, nearly dropping her wrench. She typed back, "Great, I'm famous for babysitting." "You're famous for changing galactic history," Zara replied. Emma didn't respond. She'd received 17 official commendations, 42 research requests, and more gift baskets than her quarters could hold. The Crethal High Command had implemented mandatory comfort periods for all cubs, a policy change that would have been unthinkable a month ago. The Sindari were redesigning their child development centers. The Vorton had hired human consultants to restructure their entire education system, all because she'd let 2 scared kids sleep in her room. "Hey, Emma." Marcus from engineering leaned around the corner. "Heard you saved galactic peace by tucking in some murder kittens. That true?" "I gave them blankets, Marcus. Can you hand me the torque driver?" "The Galactic Council is calling it the Johnson Protocols now. They're teaching it at the Diplomatic Academy." Emma groaned. "Please tell me you're joking." "Dead serious. My cousin's taking a xenopsych course that's entirely based on your interaction with those cubs." Marcus grinned. "You're in textbooks now. I just let some cold kids sleep in my room. Not exactly heroic." "Tell that to the 17 species restructuring their child-rearing practices." Marcus handed her the tool. "You literally changed how aliens raise their children. That's pretty badass." Emma tightened to the coupling, listening to the rattle disappear. "Fixed it. See? This is what I'm actually good at. Fixing broken things, not whatever everyone thinks I did." But in the background, in the parts of station life Emma deliberately avoided thinking about, the changes rippled outward. The Galactic Council passed the Emotional Development Protocols, a framework based entirely on human attachment theory. Research grants were being redirected towards studying human-child psychology. Multiple species were sending delegates to Earth, specifically to observe human families. Emma's quarters were still drowning in gifts, handcrafted items from grateful parents across the galaxy, thanking her for giving them permission to comfort their children. She donated everything to the station's newly created nursery. Human style, they called it. Soft surfaces, warm blankets, toys. The concept was spreading to stations across the sector. Her datapad chimed again. A formal request from the Jarrell Consortium asking her to consult on their new childhood development initiative. Emma deleted it. She deleted 43 similar requests this week. Emma Johnson, revolutionary child welfare advocate. Marcus teased. Emma Johnson, maintenance worker who's late for lunch. Emma corrected, packing up her tools. She headed toward the cafeteria, taking her usual route through the diplomatic wing. A Krithal family, Zara, her cubs, and several relatives, occupied one of the new comfort zones. The cubs spotted Emma immediately and lit up, chirping excitedly. They rushed over, carefully carrying their comfort blankets to show her. "Look, Emma warm," the smaller cub announced proudly, displaying a well-worn blanket covered in what appeared to be new stains. Soft. Very soft, Emma agreed, smiling despite herself. You guys taking good care of it? Sleep with it every night, the larger cub said, pressing close to her leg for a moment before retreating to its family. Zara nodded respectfully. They're thriving, happy, still strong, but now also content. Good. Emma genuinely meant it. That's good. She continued to the cafeteria, unaware that Commander Zillax watched from the observation deck above. His aide stood beside him, reviewing the latest reports from the Galactic Council. Sir, the preliminary analysis is complete. The Johnson protocols are being adopted by 47 species. Child welfare standards across the galaxy are being completely restructured. They're calling it the most significant cultural shift in recorded history. Zillax watched Emma wave goodbye to the cubs, disappear around a corner. She changed 10,000 years of culture because she couldn't stand the thought of children being cold. Should we inform her of the full scope of... Absolutely not. Have you seen her personnel file? She deletes diplomatic requests without reading them. The woman just wants to fix air filters and eat lunch in peace. Below, Emma entered the cafeteria, scanning the day's menu options with the intensity she usually reserved for mechanical problems. Please let them have pizza today, she thought. I really want pizza. They did not have pizza. Emma sighed, grabbed a sandwich, and settled at her usual table. On the view screen behind her, a news broadcast discussed the revolutionary Johnson protocols and their impact on interspecies relations. Emma didn't notice. She was too busy texting Marcus about the weird sound coming from the water recycler in Section 12. Somewhere in the galaxy, the Krithal High Command was holding an emergency session about implementing empire-wide comfort standards for cubs. Somewhere else, the Sindari were building their first emotional development center based on human designs. And on Station Kepler 9, Emma Johnson finished her sandwich, grabbed her toolkit, and headed back to fix the water recycler. Just another day at work.